The air reeked of ammonia and sulfur as Howard Matthews stepped onto the alien bridge, his breathing mask the only thing keeping him from suffocating in the toxic atmosphere. The 7-foot-tall Vraxian officer, with its gray scaly skin and 4 piercing yellow eyes, stood blocking his path to the ship's reactor core. Its voice translator crackled as it addressed him. "Human, you cannot pass. The radiation levels beyond this point will kill any carbon-based life form within minutes." "That's certain death," the alien said, mandibles twitching with what Howard recognized as concern. Howard smiled and walked forward anyway. "Commander Skira, with all due respect, we don't have time for this discussion," Howard said, checking the radiation protection suit's integrity one last time. "Your ship will explode in approximately 30 minutes if someone doesn't manually reset the core stabilizers." The Vraxian commander's upper eyes narrowed while the lower pair blinked rapidly, a sign of distress in their species. "Our engineers are dead. The radiation has already reached lethal levels. Even with your protection suit, you will not survive." Howard continued his steady pace toward the sealed door behind the alien officer. "Maybe not, but nobody else on this station will survive if I don't try." The emergency lights bathed the corridor in crimson, highlighting the severity of their situation. Outpost Epsilon 9, a joint human-alien research facility orbiting the gas giant Kepler-88b, housed over 300 scientists and support staff from 12 different species. The Vraxian diplomatic vessel had docked for scheduled talks when its experimental quantum drive malfunctioned, threatening to create a chain reaction that would destroy not only the ship, but the entire station. "Our physiology allows us to withstand higher radiation levels than humans," Commander Skira insisted, reluctantly stepping aside. "I should be the one to go." Howard shook his head. "Your species may tolerate more radiation, but you lack the manual dexterity needed for the override sequence. Those control panels were designed for human hands." This was partly true. The Vraxians, with their 3-fingered hands, would struggle with the intricate controls. What Howard didn't mention was that Station Director Yamamoto had ordered him to go because humans were considered more expendable than their Vraxian allies in the current political climate. One dead human engineer would cause fewer diplomatic incidents than a dead Vraxian commander. "The reactor chamber door will seal behind you," Skira warned. "There is no returning once you enter." Howard nodded. "I understand." As he approached the heavy lead door, he thought of his daughter back on Earth. Ellie would be turning 8 next month. He'd promised to be home for her birthday. Another promise he might not keep. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a sterile white chamber bathed in eerie blue light from the malfunctioning drive core. Howard's radiation detector immediately began screaming in alarm. "Shut it off," he muttered, silencing the device. No point in being reminded of what he already knew. "Matthews," Skira called out as Howard stepped through the doorway. "Your species continues to confound me. Why sacrifice yourself when the statistical probability of success is so low?" Howard turned back. "Because sometimes, Commander, the only way to beat impossible odds is to ignore them completely." The door sealed behind him with a heavy thud. Howard was alone with the dying reactor. His suit's internal display showed the radiation levels rising steadily. According to his training, he had maybe 15 minutes before his protection would fail. The reactor would destabilize completely in 30. Simple math, he needed to work fast. The control station was 20 meters away, across an open space filled with coolant pipes and conduits. As Howard made his way forward, he noticed something alarming: puddles of green liquid on the floor. Coolant leak. That explained the accelerated deterioration of the core. Howard reached the main console and began the override sequence. His fingers flew across the controls, entering commands and authorization codes. The reactor's angry hum grew louder as he worked. "Status report, Matthews." Director Yamamoto's voice crackled through his comm. "I've reached the control station." "Beginning stabilization procedures now," Howard replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "There's a coolant leak. Level 3, possibly level 4. A long pause followed. Howard knew what that meant. Level 4 meant catastrophic failure was imminent. "Understood," Yamamoto finally said. "How much time do you need?" Howard checked the system diagnostics. 10 minutes minimum. Maybe 12. Your suit will fail before then. "I'm aware, Director." Howard continued working, rerouting power, and attempting to seal the leaking coolant remotely. Evacuate the station as a precaution. Already underway, Yamamoto confirmed. Good luck, Matthews. The communication cut off. Howard was truly alone now. 8 minutes later, he'd managed to reroute the coolant flow and begin the reactor stabilization sequence. His skin had started to tingle, the first sign of radiation poisoning. The suit was failing faster than expected. Howard's vision blurred as he input the final commands. The reactor's angry red emergency lights shifted to yellow, then green. Stabilization achieved. He'd done it. But as he stepped away from the console, Howard realized the victory was only partial. The station was saved, but he was trapped in a sealed room with failing radiation protection. The tingling had become burning pain, spreading through his body. He slumped against the console, sliding down to sit on the floor. At least Ellie would know her father had died, saving hundreds of lives. Small comfort, but it was something. Howard closed his eyes, preparing for the inevitable, when a scraping sound made him look up. Someone was cutting through the sealed door. A moment later, the heavy metal door crashed inward, and a figure in a bulky environmental suit rushed toward him. It wasn't human. The movements were too fluid, the stride too long. Avraxian. Commander Skira? Howard whispered through cracked lips. Save your strength, human, came the translated reply. The alien lifted Howard effortlessly. My species can withstand short exposure to these radiation levels. I will get you to medical. As Skira carried him through the breached door, Howard managed a weak smile. You said it was certain death. And you smiled and walked forward anyway, Skira replied. Now I understand why humans have survived so long despite your physical limitations. Your species has an irrational relationship with impossibility. Howard would have laughed if he had the strength. Instead, he slipped into unconsciousness as Skira sprinted toward the medical bay. Howard woke to the steady beep of medical monitors and the strange smell of Vraxian healing compounds. He was in the station's medical bay, surrounded by equipment. His skin felt raw, as if he'd been severely sunburned from head to toe. The patient is conscious, announced a clinical voice. Dr. Narlith, the station's chief medical officer, moved into Howard's field of vision. The Telnari physician's translucent skin glowed with bioluminescent patterns, a sign of professional focus among her species. How bad? Howard managed to ask through a parched throat. You absorbed approximately 18 grays of radiation, Dr. Narlith replied, checking his vital signs. For a human, that would typically be fatal within days without treatment. Fortunately, Commander Skira retrieved you quickly, and we were able to begin cellular regeneration therapy immediately. Howard tried to sit up, but found himself too weak. The station? Safe, thanks to your actions. Director Yamamoto appeared beside his bed, looking uncharacteristically grateful. The core is stable. No casualties reported during the evacuation. You cut it close, Matthews. Howard nodded weakly. The Vraxian delegation? Commander Skira is fine. Vraxians can withstand short exposure to those radiation levels, though he did require minor treatment. Yamamoto adjusted Howard's intravenous line. He's been asking about you. Apparently, you've made quite an impression. How long until I can get back to work? Howard asked, already thinking about the mountain of maintenance tasks that would need attention after this incident. Dr. Narlith made a sound that Howard had learned was the Telnari equivalent of disapproval. Humans, always in such a hurry to return to activities that may kill them. She adjusted something on his medical monitor. You will remain in medical isolation for at least 2 weeks. The cellular regeneration must be carefully monitored. 2 weeks. Howard thought of Ellie again. He'd definitely miss her birthday now. Can I send a message to Earth? He asked. My daughter, already arranged, Yamamoto interrupted. We've informed your family that you were injured in a station incident, but are expected to make a full recovery. We also arranged for a special delivery to be sent to your daughter for her birthday. Official Epsilon 9 Science Kit, and a personal video message from Commander Skira explaining that her father is a hero. Howard felt a lump in his throat. Thank you, Director. Yamamoto nodded curtly, professional mask back in place. Rest now, Matthews. That's an order. After they left, Howard drifted in and out of sleep, his dreams filled with reactor cores and radiation alarms. When he woke again, Commander Skira was standing by his bed, yellow eyes studying him with alien intensity. "You are recovering," the Vraxian stated. "Good. Thanks to you," Howard replied. "Thought you said going into that chamber was certain death." Skira's upper eyes blinked in sequence, the Vraxian equivalent of amusement. "For a human with inadequate protection, yes. But I realized something after you walked into that chamber." "What's that?" "That sometimes survival depends not on physical capability, but on will." The commander's translator gave his voice an unusual softness. "My people have a saying, the strongest shell still breaks if the creature inside has surrendered." Howard nodded. "We have something similar on Earth. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog." Skira's head tilted in confusion. "Dogs are your domesticated quadrupeds, correct? Why would you measure their combat effectiveness?" Despite his condition, Howard laughed, immediately regretting it as pain shot through his chest. "It's just a saying, Commander. It means spirit matters more than physical attributes." "Oh." Skira seemed to consider this. "Your spirit is substantial, Matthews. My report to the Vraxian High Council will recommend you for our Order of Indomitable Will. It is rarely given to non-Vraxians." "I'm honored," Howard said sincerely. "But I was just doing my job." "Your job did not require sacrificing yourself," Skira countered. "That was a choice." Before Howard could respond, Dr. Narlith returned, firmly suggesting that Commander Skira continue the conversation another time. The Vraxian departed with a formal bow, leaving Howard to his treatment. The next few days passed in a blur of medical procedures and rest. The cellular regeneration therapy was painful but effective. By the 5th day, Howard could sit up without assistance. By the 10th, he was allowed short walks around the medical bay. Director Yamamoto visited regularly, updating him on station repairs and the ongoing investigation into the reactor malfunction. The Vraxian ship had been quarantined pending a full engineering review. "We've discovered something concerning," Yamamoto told him during one visit. "The initial reactor failure wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with the coolant system." Howard felt a chill that had nothing to do with his condition. "Sabotage? Who would want to destroy a diplomatic vessel?" "That's what we're trying to determine," Yamamoto said quietly. "There are factions on both sides who oppose the human-Vraxian alliance. This could have been an attempt to trigger an interspecies incident." "Does Commander Skira know?" Yamamoto nodded. "He's been leading the Vraxian side of the investigation." "Very quietly, of course. We don't want to cause panic on the station." Howard considered this new information. The Joint Human-Alien Research Station had always been a symbol of interspecies cooperation, but tensions had been rising throughout the sector. Resources were becoming scarce as more species expanded their territories. "Keep me updated," Howard said. "I want to help when I'm back on duty." Yamamoto gave him a rare smile. "You've done enough, Matthews. Focus on getting better." On the 14th day of his recovery, Howard was finally cleared to leave medical isolation. His body still ached, and his skin retained a reddish tint from the radiation exposure, but Dr. Narlith assured him the remaining symptoms would fade with time. As Howard prepared to return to his quarters, Commander Skira appeared at the medical bay entrance, accompanied by 2 other Vraxians in formal military attire. "Engineer Matthews," Skira announced formally. "The Vraxian High Council has reviewed my report on your actions. They wish to express their gratitude." One of the Vraxian officials stepped forward, holding an ornate box. Inside was a medallion, a complex geometric shape, made of a shimmering blue-white metal Howard didn't recognize. "This is the Order of Indomitable Will," Skira explained. "Only 17 non-Vraxians have received this honor in our 3,000 years of interstellar relations." Howard accepted the medallion with appropriate reverence. "I'm deeply honored, Commander." The ceremony was brief, but meaningful. After the Vraxian officials departed, Skira remained behind. "There is another matter we must discuss," the commander said, voice lowered. "Privately." Howard nodded, and they moved to a secure conference room adjacent to the medical bay. "We have identified the saboteur," Skira stated once the room was sealed. "It was Technician Vral, one of my own crew." Howard was shocked. A Vraxian sabotaged their own diplomatic vessel? What? Vral belongs to a traditionalist sect that opposes alliance with humans. They believe our species should maintain isolation and strength rather than seek cooperation. Skira's upper eyes narrowed in anger. He has been taken into custody and will face justice on our homeworld. Was he working alone? We don't believe so. Director Yamamoto and I suspect he had human accomplices on the station. Skira's 4 eyes fixed on Howard intently. That is why I am here. We need your help. Howard understood immediately. You want me to find the human collaborators? Yes. As a maintenance engineer, you have access to all station systems and can move freely without arousing suspicion. Skira placed a small device on the table between them. This will allow us to communicate securely. Howard picked up the device, examining it carefully. I'll do whatever I can to help, Commander. These people nearly killed everyone on this station. They must be identified before they attempt another act of sabotage, Skira agreed. The alliance between our species is too important to fail because of extremists. Howard was released to light duty the following day. He resumed his maintenance rounds, paying special attention to restricted areas and critical systems. Using Skira's secure communication device, he reported unusual activities and potential security vulnerabilities. 3 days into his investigation, Howard noticed something odd while checking environmental controls in Section 7. The access log showed someone had been making minor adjustments to the life support parameters, nothing dangerous, but unauthorized and unexplained. He traced the access code to Junior Technician Alvarez, a recent transfer to the station. Howard kept his distance, but began monitoring Alvarez's movements and work patterns. That evening, he met with Skira in a maintenance tunnel away from security cameras. Alvarez has been accessing environmental systems without authorization, Howard reported. The changes are subtle oxygen levels adjusted by less than 1%, temperature variations of just half a degree. Testing the system response, Skira suggested. Preparing for something larger. Howard nodded. That's what I'm afraid of. We should place him under surveillance. Already done, Skira confirmed. I've also identified another suspect, communications officer Patel. She's been sending encrypted transmissions during communication blackout periods. Could be innocent, Howard cautioned. Many staff send personal messages home. These were not directed toward Earth, Skira said grimly. They were sent to a relay station known to be used by anti-alliance groups. Howard frowned. We need to move carefully. If we alert them, they might accelerate whatever they're planning. Agreed. Continue your maintenance work, but focus on sections where Alvarez has been active. I will monitor Patel's communications. As Howard turned to leave, Skira placed a 3-fingered hand on his shoulder. Be careful, Matthews. These people were willing to destroy an entire station to achieve their goals. They would not hesitate to eliminate one human engineer. Howard nodded, touched by the alien's concern. I'll watch my back, Commander. Over the next week, Howard gathered evidence of a coordinated sabotage operation. Alvarez had indeed been testing the environmental control responses, while Patel coordinated with outside operatives. They weren't alone. Howard identified 3 more station personnel involved in the conspiracy. The saboteurs' plan became clear when Howard discovered unauthorized modifications to the station's defensive shield generators. They were creating a vulnerability that would allow an external attack to succeed where internal sabotage had failed. Howard reported his findings to Skira and Director Yamamoto in an emergency meeting. They're planning to disable our shields during the upcoming diplomatic conference, Howard explained, showing them the modified shield schematics. With representatives from 15 species on board, it would be catastrophic and would effectively end any hope of interspecies cooperation in this sector, Yamamoto added grimly. We need to act now. With respect, Director, if we move against them prematurely, we risk alerting their external accomplices, Skira cautioned. We must identify the attack vessel as well. I have an idea, Howard said, but it's risky, and you're not going to like it. The plan was simple but dangerous. Howard would approach Alvarez, pretending to be sympathetic to the anti-alliance cause. If he could gain their trust, he might learn details about the external attack and any other conspirators on the station. Yamamoto was hesitant. You're still recovering from radiation exposure, Matthews. This puts you at unnecessary risk. With respect, Director, I'm the obvious choice, Howard argued. As the engineer who heroically saved the station, they'll be more likely to believe I've had a change of heart after nearly dying for a cause I've come to question. Skira's upper eyes narrowed. It could work. Humans are known for their ability to Re-evaluate their loyalties after traumatic experiences. Howard couldn't tell if the Vraxian was being diplomatic or sarcastic. I can do this. Just have a security team ready when we get the information. The next day, Howard deliberately crossed paths with Alvarez in the maintenance tunnels of Section 7. Checking the environmental controls again? Howard asked casually. Alvarez stiffened. Routine maintenance. Nothing special. Funny, I didn't see any work orders for this section. Howard leaned against the wall, blocking Alvarez's easy exit. You know, nearly dying in that reactor gave me a lot of time to think. About what? Alvarez asked warily. About why I was the one sent in there. Expendable. That's what we are to them, expendable humans doing the dangerous work while the aliens reap the benefits. Howard kept his voice low, bitter. I saved their precious diplomatic vessel, and what did I get? A shiny metal and permanent radiation damage. Alvarez studied him for a long moment. That's not the attitude I'd expect from the station's newest hero. Howard gave a harsh laugh. Heroes are just people who haven't realized they're being used yet. Something changed in Alvarez's expression, a subtle shift from suspicion to consideration. Some of us meet for drinks in Hydroponics Lab 3 after second shift. Off the record. You should join us tonight. Howard nodded. Maybe I will. That evening, Howard entered Hydroponics Lab 3 wearing a maintenance uniform with a concealed recording device provided by Skira. 5 people were already there, including Alvarez and Patel. They fell silent as Howard approached. Matthews, Patel acknowledged coolly. Alvarez says you've had an epiphany. Nearly dying tends to clarify things, Howard replied. Especially when you realize you almost died for people who see humans as convenient tools. One of the others, a security officer Howard recognized as Thompson, spoke up. Pretty words. But why should we trust you? You're wearing a Vraxian honor medal. Howard touched the medallion he'd deliberately left visible. Good cover, don't you think? No one questions the loyal engineer who sacrificed himself for alien diplomats. The group exchanged glances. Finally, Patel nodded to Alvarez, who stepped forward. We're planning something, Matthews. Something that will change everything. Alvarez's voice was tight with excitement. The upcoming conference, 17 species, sending representatives to discuss resource sharing. The perfect opportunity. For what? Howard asked, trying to sound eager rather than appalled. To show everyone that cooperation with aliens leads only to human subjugation. Thompson said fiercely. The Vraxian ship was just the beginning. We're going to make a statement no one can ignore. Patel pulled out a data pad. We have supporters outside the station. A modified mining vessel with enhanced weapons capabilities. When we lower the shields during the conference opening ceremony, they'll strike. Key targets only the Vraxian delegation, the Telnari representatives, and the Arcturian trade minister. Casualties? Howard asked, keeping his voice neutral. Minimal human losses, Thompson assured him. We're not monsters. But the alien casualties will be significant enough to end any hope of continued alliance. Howard nodded slowly, as if considering. And my role would be? You have access to all maintenance systems, Alvarez explained. We need you to ensure the shield modifications remain undetected until it's time. I can do that, Howard said. But I want assurances. When this is over, we all get out safely. Already arranged, Patel confirmed. The attack vessel will dock briefly at Maintenance Bay 4. We'll have 90 seconds to board before they depart. Howard pretended to consider the offer. When does this happen? 3 days from now? The conference opens at 0900 station time. Patel handed him a small data chip. Your specific instructions. Memorize and destroy. Howard pocketed the chip. I'm in. As he left the hydroponics lab, Howard felt sick. The conspirators weren't just planning sabotage, they were planning mass murder. He headed directly to the secure meeting point where Skira and Yamamoto were waiting. We got it all, Howard confirmed, handing over the recording device. They're planning to lower the shields during the conference opening and allow an armed mining vessel to attack. Specific targets include the Vraxian, Telnari, and Arcturian delegations. Yamamoto's face hardened. This is worse than we thought. It's not just sabotage, it's an act of war. We must move against them immediately, Skira insisted, all 4 eyes blazing with anger. Not yet, Howard cautioned. They mentioned supporters outside the station. If we arrest them now, we might miss their external accomplices. What do you suggest? Yamamoto asked. Let them think their plan is proceeding. Meanwhile, we identify the attack vessel and prepare a reception they won't expect. Howard outlined his counterplan. We'll need to alert the targeted delegations, but quietly. No one else can know until we're ready to move. Over the next 2 days, Howard continued meeting with the conspirators while feeding information to Skira and Yamamoto. Security was quietly enhanced around the conference areas, and the targeted delegations were secretly relocated to secure quarters. The modified mining vessel was identified approaching the station on a standard commercial route. Rather than intercepting it immediately, Yamamoto allowed it to continue its approach while deploying a concealed security force to Maintenance Bay 4. On the morning of the conference, Howard reported to his regular maintenance duties. The data chip from Patel had instructed him to disable a specific security node at precisely 0855, 5 minutes before the conference opening. This would create a brief window where the shield modifications would take effect. At 0850, Howard entered the maintenance tunnel leading to the security node. He had a decision to make. If he disabled the node as instructed, the conspirators would believe their plan was proceeding. But it would also create a real, if brief, vulnerability in the station's defenses. Howard's comm unit vibrated with an incoming secure message from Skira. Attack vessel has accelerated. They're moving earlier than expected. Current ETA 0853. The conspirators had changed their timeline without informing Howard. They didn't fully trust him after all. Howard made his decision instantly. Instead of disabling the security node, he activated an emergency override, sending station security forces to both the conference chamber and Maintenance Bay 4. Then he ran toward the bay where the conspirators would be gathering. He arrived to find chaos. Station security had already apprehended Thompson and 2 others, but Alvarez and Patel were nowhere to be seen. A security officer reported they had fled toward the emergency evacuation pods. Howard's comm crackled again. Matthews, Skira's voice was urgent. The attack vessel is attempting to dock at Emergency Bay 2. Alvarez and Patel are likely headed there. On my way, Howard replied, already running. He reached Emergency Bay 2 just as Alvarez was overriding the docking controls. Patel stood guard, a stolen security stunner in her hand. Stop, Howard shouted. It's over. Security has the others. Patel spun, aiming the stunner at him. You betrayed us. You're planning to murder hundreds of innocent beings, Howard replied, carefully moving closer. Did you really think I'd help you start an interspecies war? Humans first, Matthews. Alvarez snarled, still working on the docking controls. Always humans first. That's not how survival works, Howard argued. We need allies, not enemies. Patel's finger tightened on the stunner trigger. Should have left you in that reactor room. Before she could fire, the bay doors burst open. Commander Skira led a security team into the area, weapons ready. Surrender now, the Vraxian ordered. Instead of complying, Alvarez slammed his hand down on the emergency release, forcing the outer airlock to begin opening while the attack vessel was still approaching. Warning alarms blared as the bay began to depressurize. Seal the outer doors, Howard shouted, lunging for the control panel. Patel fired the stunner, striking him in the shoulder. Howard crashed to the floor, momentarily paralyzed but still conscious. Skira moved with surprising speed for his size, tackling Patel, while security personnel subdued Alvarez. Another officer reached the controls and aborted the airlock sequence. The attack vessel is breaking off, someone reported. Station weapons have locked on. Howard struggled to sit up as the stunner's effects began to fade. Commander Skira knelt beside him. Are you injured? Just stunned, Howard managed. Did we get them all? All conspirators on the station are in custody, Skira confirmed. The attack vessel is being pursued by our patrol ships. They will not escape. Howard nodded, relieved. Good. In the days that followed, the full extent of the conspiracy was revealed. 17 people on the station had been involved, with another dozen supporting them from outside. The plot had been orchestrated by a radical human-first organization called Terra Prime, dedicated to ending all alien alliances. The diplomatic conference proceeded as planned, though with enhanced security. Ironically, the foiled attack served to strengthen the alliance rather than destroy it. The united response of humans and aliens working together to prevent the attack demonstrated the value of their cooperation. 1 month after the incident, Howard was summoned to Director Yamamoto's office. He found not only the director but also Commander Skira and representatives from 3 other species waiting for him. Engineer Matthews, Yamamoto began formally. In recognition of your extraordinary service, both in saving the Vraxian diplomatic vessel and in uncovering the recent conspiracy, you are being offered a new position. Howard raised an eyebrow. What kind of position? The Alliance is forming a joint security task force, Skira explained, dedicated to preventing extremists of any species from disrupting our cooperative efforts. We need someone who understands how to bridge the gap between different species, someone who has demonstrated the courage to face certain death when necessary. And you want me? Howard asked, genuinely surprised. You have proven yourself twice over, the Telnari representative said. First by your willingness to sacrifice yourself for others, then by your skill in uncovering the plot against us. Howard thought about the offer. It would mean more dangerous work, but also the chance to make a real difference in human-alien relations. What about my daughter, he asked. I'm all she has since her mother died. Yamamoto smiled. The position includes family accommodations. Ellie would join you on the new Joint Command Station being constructed at Proxima Centauri. Howard looked at each of the alien representatives, then at Skira, who had become something of a friend during their shared ordeal. When do I start? He asked. 2 years later, Howard stood on the observation deck of Alliance Station Harmony, watching a Vraxian diplomatic vessel dock. Beside him, 9-year-old Ellie pressed her face against the viewport glass, excitement radiating from her. Is that Commander Skira's ship, Dad? She asked eagerly. It is, Howard confirmed. He's bringing the new Arcturian ambassador for the treaty signing. Can I show him my science project? I did it on Vraxian biology, just like he suggested. Howard smiled. I'm sure he'd love that. As the ship completed its docking procedures, Howard reflected on how much had changed. The Terra Prime conspiracy had ultimately failed in its goal to drive humans and aliens apart. Instead, it had catalyzed the formation of a stronger, more integrated alliance. There were still challenges, of course. Cultural misunderstandings, resource disputes, and the occasional diplomatic incident. But the foundation they'd built was solid. His comm unit chimed with a message from Skira, docking complete. The ambassador is eager to meet the famous human who walks towards certain death with a smile. Howard laughed and sent a reply. Tell him that's just the human way of saying hello. Taking Ellie's hand, Howard headed toward the docking bay to greet their visitors. Some might still see cooperation between species as a path to certain death for human independence. But Howard knew better. He'd seen firsthand that the only way forward was together, even when that path seemed impossibly dangerous. Sometimes, the only appropriate response to that certain death was a smile and a step forward into the unknown.